Now, this isn't a weekend bake-off. This is actually, not that you make any difference to you lot when you watch this, but this is sort of like mid-twin week baking session. And it's a sort of a challenge. It's not a really challenging dish to make, but I was challenged to make this by my best mate. Now, my best mate does tend to muddle his words. And we were talking about some things I baked, and he says, why haven't you made any of them fatty bastards? Now, that's a bit difficult to decipher. Fatty bastards. He said, we had them in York, in that famous tea room. You couldn't remember the name of it. Betty's tea room, you meant. And then we realised he didn't mean fatty bastards. He meant Fat Rascals. So that's what I'm going to attempt to make. Okay, not made before. So these are some Fat Rascals, which are very similar to Betty's Fat Rascals, but these are from a slightly older recipe, and they will lack something that you'll find at Betty's tea rooms. So you need your oven getting hot, so up to 200. Sorry about the noise in the background. And then we'll want some flour, demerara of sugar, currants, eggs, salt, allspice, a bit of baking powder, and some currants. Okay, and that's all you're going to need. I'll tell you quantities. Now, I'll tell you quantities. I've doubled it because I need to make extra because my mate Phil wants some. So, fatty bastards, aka Fat Rascals. So, in here, I've got 450 grams of flour. Okay, I've doubled it, so 225 if you want to stick to the original. The original will make about 6. Okay, that's why I'm double doing it. And then you want some demerara sugar. You'll want 100 grams of that, so I've got 200 going in there. You want a good pinch of salt. You'll want, how much was it? A quarter of a teaspoon of mixed spice, and that goes. And you're going to want a teaspoon of baking powder, so I've done that. Okay, so I'm just going to get them mixed together. Now, if you're sticking with the original quantities, you're going to need to put an egg in it. I'll need obviously to put 2 in it. You will also need some egg to go for the egg wash at the end. Okay, you'll want 50 grams of currants, so obviously I've doubled that. And the other thing you're going to want is 75 grams of chilled butter, so my butter's in the fridge chilling at the minute. Okay, so I'm just going to make sure they're mixed together and I'll get the butter. So there's my butter, nicely chilled, chopped up a little bit. Don't want to come out of the thing now. And what we do is we just rub this into it until we've got it to the sort of consistency of dry breadcrumbs. Now, if you've ever been to Betty's tea rooms, they're not just in York anymore. They sort of claim that they sort of have been cooking them for over 30 years and it's sort of their invention. And they've actually gone as far as trademarking the name, so you can't actually make and sell Fat Rascals anywhere else. I mean, they can't stop you making them, can they? And eating them, so. But their recipe, they slightly adapted, and when you go there, you'll see it has like a little face on it. It's got some almonds and some cherries, I think on top, creating their trademark little face. Well, obviously that's Betty's invention. Okay, that wasn't how it was originally. So the recipe we're following is a slightly older one, and in fact, these are like a cross between a scone, not a scone, scone, bloody scones. It's a cross between a scone and a rock cake, if you know what one of them is. And quite often the original ones were actually cooked like in a pan, covered over, shoved into the hot ashes of the fire, or they were cooked on like a skillet with a bit of fat in there, and as a result they were sometimes known as well, not necessarily the Fat Rascals, but a very similar one cooked that way were known as singing hinnies. And in fact 1859 Charles Dickens mentions singing hinnies, and he sort of alludes to these sort of Fat Rascals, or as they were probably more commonly known up in Yorkshire at least, turf cakes. Okay, so 1859 he's referring to them, and the singing bit is the sound of the sort of hissing, if you like, of the fat in the skillet. Right, so I'm going to get my other hand dirty and I'm going to rub all this butter in, okay, and then once that's all ready to go, now you want some milk. You'll want 3 tablespoons of milk, but we won't chuck all that in. We will add that gradually because we want it to be, we don't want a wet dough. Alright, so I've got some milk measured out, got my currants, got my eggs ready. I just need to get this all blended in. So I think that's just about got the butter in there. So now what we're going to do is we're going to put 2 eggs, normally 1, but remember I'm double doing it. So we can go 2 eggs, and we're just going to stir that through and get that all mixed in and blended together, and at which point we will then start adding those 3 tablespoons, or 6 in my case, of milk to get it to bind together, but like I said, we don't want it too wet. So we will just add the milk gradually. Once we've got the dough made, we will be chucking in them currants, so they're the last things to go. You can always add a little bit more milk if you need to, but obviously we don't want to go overboard. So let me just get that finished mixed in. Right, so I'm going to start adding the milk, like I say, a little bit at a time. And if necessary we can always add more, but we don't want to go too overboard. Okay, I suspect I will probably end up adding a little bit more. Okay, we want the dough so that it can press together and stay together. Okay, dough that stays together, presses together, stays together. Right, well I haven't said that, possibly won't. So anyway, let me get the dough just the right consistency. Okay, and I know you won't watch this, Phil. These fatty bastards are for you. Could say one fat bastard deserves another. So I didn't use all the milk. So now in goes those currants. Okay, and what we're going to try and do is, I might have to get my hands in here again, fold it through. I mean, you could use stand mixer for this, I presume. I wasn't really sure it was worth it, to be honest. So I'm just going to get these all nice uniform mixed through. Check your oven, make sure it's 200. Get a baking tray lined, which I've done. Okay, and then we'll divide these up into, like I say, this should make about 12. Okay, basically roll it into a ball, flatten it, 6 on tray. Betty's your uncle. So divide it up into, like I say, 12 portions, roll into a ball, press it down, put it on there, ready for an old egg wash. One old traditional recipe, dating back to about 1889, did actually mention that, I think I made that one a bit big actually, did talk about making it, oh sorry, dusting it with just some icing sugar. Okay, we're just going to do an egg wash. Okay, but to be honest, you do what you like. And if you want to make it like Betty's, then you you put some whole almond, blanched almonds in there, and a couple of cherries for some eyes. but like I say, we're not doing Betty's, we're doing more of a traditional one. Okay, so I'm just going to get them on there, and then they go in the oven and they'll cook for about 15 minutes after we get egg washed them, okay, until we're getting a nice golden colour on them. So here we go, first batch out the oven. Okay, nice golden colour on top. Okay, I'm just going to transfer these off to a wire rack. We'll let them cool, and then we'll have a little bit of tasting. Now these might be typically served with butter, cream, jam even. Okay, one of the old recipes basically quoted it as eating it with, I think it was butter and cream. Okay, but they're a bit hot at the moment, so we just let them cool, and then I might let you watch me eat one, or half one. Better save one for the wife. Right, still quite warm, but don't hang around too long, so let's just break it. Okay, does sort of resemble a bit of a scone. Scone! Bloody scone. Right, now I'm not going to eat this, but I'm just going to try this as it is, on its own. Oh, hot. Very sweet. I mean, you have to shed loads of sugar in it, but I reckon they'd be nice hot with a bit of butter. Still quite moist in the middle. Very nice. So, there we go. Phil's Fatty Bastards, aka Yorkshire Turf Cake, aka Fat Rascal.